Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you joining us today. We're going to be talking about how to automate quarterly reviews using Hex, dbt, Redshift, and Google Slides. Joined today by Derek, who is the Analytics Engineering Manager at Algolia, who implemented this process and has saved his team a ton of time by doing this. At the end of the talk, during the Q&A, we'll also be joined by Bobby Burstock from DBT. If you have any questions about how to prepare the data at the beginning of this process to make automating the reports even easier. Quick agenda for today. Derek's going to jump in and talk about what kind of the expectations were from his team on delivering quarterly reviews, how he went about automating that process, and what the impact has been since automating it. His team saved just a ton of time by doing this, so we're eager to share it with you, and he's going to demo exactly how we built it. And at the end of the talk, we'll also send out a notebook that has this whole process implemented, so you can check it out. It'll be using dummy data, so you'll have to connect it with your own, but you'll see how the whole process works. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Derek to jump right in.
Thanks, Matt. All right, let's get started. So first thing is our what's required of us for this process was really twofold. We needed to use governed data, and we wanted to drive data automation for the company. So how do we do these two things? First thing was to build a set of production data sets, these dimensional models in DBT that are a single source of truth. And so in that process, what we're doing is we're taking raw data that data engineering provides us. And as all data practitioners are aware of, we use DBT. We are kind of cleaning the data. We're relabeling columns. We are casting things in the right data types. We are adding business logic, that sort of thing. And we're also adding tests on top, data quality tests on top of it, as well as documentation. And then for the next step, we also, to drive data automation, we want to basically find solutions like Hex that can schedule and automate this for multiple teams, not just the executive team, but yeah, basically save the company a whole ton of time. So what was our previous state of the world? We were downloading CSVs manually from Salesforce. We were pushing uploading the CSVs into Google Sheets, and then we are pivoting and visualizing within Google Sheets, and then finally copy pasting those charts into Google Slides. So it's simple but manual. It takes a lot of time. The current state of the world is that we've now automated this whole process, and all you need to do is just press one button, as you'll see later on. We start off with raw data in Redshift that's modeled in DBT and pushed back to Redshift. And then we are reading from those model tables in Hex, getting aggregated results that are then scheduled to be updated and pushed to Google Sheets. We are still pivoting and visualizing once during the creation of the Google Sheet, and then we're copy pasting those charts over to Google Slides. And then all you need to do really is, because those Google Sheets gets updated, at the cadence of the scheduled run, the data gets populated in Google Slides. The charts get updated by clicking Update All. So as you can see here, previously we were spending 2 weeks to download, paste data, and reconcile numbers. Now we are just pressing one button to refresh 2 charts, or all the charts. Indeed, these quarterly reviews are usually like these 30, 40 slide behemoths. So what's our impact? We have a trusted automated data process now, and executives can really rely and trust the data that's presented to them, and trust the insights that get generated out of that process. We can also apply this automation process to other decks in our company. So a lot of teams have routine reporting needs with their team, with leadership. And so we're going to apply this to other teams. And we've cut down a lot of admin time, right, to to download data, to create these Google Sheets, to reconcile the numbers. We've cut it down from 2 weeks down to 5-10 minutes. So now we'll get on with the demo. We'll start off with the notebook. So to start things off, you really need to set up a couple things, not too many things. You need to set up your Google API credentials. You need to add those. You need to set up a service account and set up keys. Upload the secret key into Hex over here in Secrets. And then you can get on with it. So we'll start by importing all the libraries, setting the service guide information based off that secret key, setting your credentials, setting your scope, your creds, and your client. And then this is the part that everyone's going to be very interested in. This is just swapping out your particular worksheet link into this section, replacing it what we currently have with yours. And then next is obviously I'm using dummy sales data here because we can't share confidential information, but you would, in your cases, you would be inserting some SQL query here or Python code here that is analyzing your own internal data. So for this case, for our presentation, we had to generate dummy sales data, and just to kind of let everyone know, it's actually quite easy to generate dummy sales data with Hex. So Hex has Hex Magic, which is the AI-powered function, lets you generate code using natural language, and that's exactly what we did. We generate some Python code using this prompt, which you can copy-paste and try for yourself. And all we did was try to create a chart that fluctuated month to month for certain regions, and it goes up and to the right, as we all want our charts to go. So now we have not only one set of dummy data, we have two. So we generated one for sales and one for subscribers below. So we did that twice. And so now you've got all the queries that you want to be scheduled and updated in your Google Sheets. How do you schedule it? So if you go to the left-hand side, if we hit publish, this will give us the option to now schedule the run at whatever cadence you want. So for the sake of the internal report, we have it scheduled to quarterly. In your case, you might want to schedule it weekly or monthly, however frequent you need your data refreshed. So now we're going to get straight to the bottom, which is how you now push the data, write the data into Google Sheets. So that's really a couple quick functions. You just need to map the name of your tab that you're going to be inputting data into. So there's two tabs we're going to be inputting data into: dummy sales data and dummy subscriber data. And you cannot just keep writing on top of a worksheet. You need to actually clear the worksheet and update it completely with new results, with fresh results. So that's what this fourth line is doing. So after these run successfully, these scheduled runs are run successfully, you should see fresh data in your designated tabs. So we are pushing data into the dummy sales data tab and the dummy subscriber data tab. These are all automated, so I don't have to lift a finger or do any copy paste. This is all automated. And so we also have corresponding tabs to generate the pivot tables and to generate the charts. So once these are set once, you can forget it, basically. So now what's next is you have these charts are copy pasted into the Google Slides over here. So what's really neat is if these charts have been updated, you'll notice that when you go to Tools and you go to Linked Objects, you should see this bar should pop up on the right-hand corner, right-hand side. And in the right-hand corner, you have this yellow button, Update All. So hypothetically, you have a deck that, some board deck or executive deck that's got 30 slides. And as opposed to clicking and pressing update for every single chart, you just need to press update all. And that should save you a ton of time. So now all your charts are updated and you've refreshed the data with one click as opposed to copy pasting all these charts, downloading CSVs. All of this was just done with a simple click. That's basically it. We've managed to save the company a ton of time. Everyone's happy. So that pretty much concludes the demo. We can take questions.
Great. Yeah, so pretty great simple demo of how to automate all of this work to update a deck. Maybe I'll kick it off with a question, Derek, that I've been kind of curious about. Can you speak to how many charts or how many decks have you implemented this process on?
Really just the one, but then I believe I saw this deck get duplicated a couple times. So we've really meant to just build it once and give this template out to the org to use. But yeah, I know of like multiple teams who have who are interested in this tool.
The other question I had was kind of around, how much work was it to kind of pre-model the data in dbt to make this process pretty easy to do with Hex and subsequently Google Slides and Sheets?
Yeah, it was fairly quick. You see, there's basically, I guess, as much you can implement as much controls and documentation as you would like. So originally they were just queries reading against dimensional models or in this case, like certain MART models in dbt, and then we converted them to higher level aggregation MART models, like more further downstream models that are easily read and quick to run. So for performance, for performance optimization, I would suggest, converting these big queries in Hex into, models in dbt, and then that way you put the burden on, dbt to create those flatter tables, higher aggregation tables.
Yeah, and a couple of questions from the Q&A, which if anybody does have questions, you can type them into the Q&A and we will answer them. So first one here, in the old world, your sales data was in Salesforce. Can you import data directly from Salesforce? So I think the question is kind of, do you need to go through these steps of bringing it into Redshift, modeling it with dbt, and then working with it in Hex or go direct?
I think that it's probably not ideal to go directly from Salesforce to Hex to Google Sheets and skip this dbt data modeling layer, because there's a lot of logic that, a lot of work that we had done to deduplicate things, remove garbage records. The value, I think everyone here who's attending probably knows the value of data modeling is to apply rigor, apply tests, data quality tests, documentation to this, raw data, so that, you can trust the data more. What you're pulling. Things have corresponding definitions for, to fall back on. So
yeah,
I would say probably not, no going direct.
Yeah, I would say Salesforce is kind of notorious for having a lot of variety in the data quality. So not taking those steps to clean it up can make automations a little bit maybe dangerous, where you don't quite see what's the messy parts of the data until too late. So yeah, I would highly recommend pre-modeling Salesforce data before you do analytics on top. Another question here. Does the Google update button also regenerate the data being pulled in Hex, or are those separate jobs?
Does the Google update button also regenerate the data being pulled in Hex? Okay, so for this question's probably worded a little bit poorly, but I think if I were to understand it correctly, I think they're trying to ask, does the Google,
They're trying to ask, like in Google Slides, when you hit that update all and it
yeah,
refreshes the slides, does that kick off the Hex notebook that runs the
separate?
data? Yeah,
Okay, so
those are,
those are
yeah,
separate, exactly.
yeah.
So if you were to like think about actions that get kicked off, the action that does get kicked off in real time is the scheduled reports will trigger, the whole notebook will run, and then the Google Sheets will get cleared because you're clearing the entire Google Sheet, and then you're appending in fresh data into the Google Sheet. That happens behind the scenes without your intervention. And then in Google Slides, that is unfortunately a manual thing. I would love to probably reach out to Google and say, can we just also automate this too and just do away with the button? And so, yeah,
Yeah,
they're separate.
similar next question, which is, is there a way to skip the Google Sheet altogether and just link visualizations created in Hex directly in the Google slide? I would say, I'll take this one. That Hex is working on kind of deeper integrations with Google's tools, so more to come on that in the coming months. And then, Leon, hey Leon. Curious how you think about who the orchestrator for these data updates is. Hex pushing data into Sheets, Sheets plus coupler pulling data straight from the warehouse, e.g. via CSV import, 3 air ops or similar pushing data from the warehouse. So my interpretation of this question is, we're moving a lot of data around here. Kind of, is there a way to think about an orchestration layer on top of all of this, or you kind of just piecemeal it? How do you think about it, Derek? And Leon, if I'm not getting that correct, please go ahead and throw in another question in here. Maybe you already did lower, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, I mean, we have Airflow, as most folks do, doing the orchestration of building DBT models overnight. So that portion we're pretty content with. I think to me, the orchestration of scheduling the Hex automation, we don't have that many automations yet where we need to orchestrate the sequence of of these different scheduled jobs in Hex. Maybe at a later time, we might consider that. I'm not sure if I would. So Matt, I'll actually throw back to you for companies and different, companies of different sizes that might have a lot of jobs, scheduled runs. How does Hex manage that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, Hex does have some scheduling, as you demonstrate, some scheduling functionality. So, and there's some ability to kind of embed a Hex app in your orchestration process. So some companies do run a Hex notebook in order to transform their data, spin up a bunch of dashboards or update a bunch of dashboards. I would say for this scenario in particular, you have a set date when you want to do this activity. So why would you run this every time you're running your updates? That's kind of wasted compute. So in this instance, I think it makes sense to have them decoupled. Your typical build with all your orchestration, and then like you have this very specific quarterly analytics kind of set of queries. But there's a ton of flexibility there. So, if you want to reach out to me directly after this, we can talk more about maybe what's happening at your company and see if we can help you get the right level of orchestration for your needs. next question here. Hello, thanks for the demo. I have a question. Do you get notified if for whatever reason some of the cells of the notebook fails and your scheduled notebooks cannot run completely?
Well, I think so far we've been checking manually and keeping close tabs on this thing because it's pretty important. But yeah, there were failures. I checked manually for those. Is there an ability for us to flag failures in with Hex?
We do have some alerting capabilities. I'll actually have to probably take that one and go investigate a bit more how granular we can get with that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take that one back and get back to that person. So if I think that person was anonymous, if you can ping me directly, I'll follow up with you and get an email out to you with a better answer.
I can take the next one from Harrison, actually. This is a
Okay.
good question. Any thoughts on benefits of using Hex as the scheduler for some fairly simple Python versus using orchestration such as Airflow? So yeah, that's a wonderful question. So if you think about it, Hex, at least our interpretation of it is it's meant to be a very end user friendly interface, and it's supposed to take burden off of a already very busy data engineering team. So in my eyes, absolutely. If you want to, if this is something that's repeatable, known task that we want to have automated, it's been, the value has been proven out. I think you could probably migrate that task over to data engineering and have them manage it in Airflow. But at the very outset, like when people are still discovering things, querying things in SQL or Python, writing Python code on their own, I think makes a ton of sense to let the end user who might, in our organization, a lot of folks are very, SQL savvy, Python savvy. So it's a great tool for our company to just let end users write their own queries, write their own code, and automate whatever tasks they want to have automated.
And this next question, maybe you even want to read it, but it's basically about where do you do which amount of modeling? Like how much modeling do you do in DBT versus in the Hex notebook versus in the Google Sheets?
Yeah, that's a great question. And how we treat DBT versus Hex here is, I think Hex was originally used as the exploration tool to just let business analysts who are SQL savvy to write queries and aggregations that make sense for them for reporting, and then take those, convert those into MART models once they're ready. So as opposed to reading from this gigantic SQL blob, we are now converting it to a MART model, and we're just doing a select star from that column for certain, from that table for certain dates. And so yeah, in DBT, you basically have business logic that the end user defines as a MART model. In Hex, you have a select star adding a where clause for the period that you care about reporting.
So, and yeah, just to maybe sum that up, like your goal is to move all of the modeling to DBT, Hex just to really query the data and schedule out the push to get it to Google Sheets, where you're doing like maybe one pivot or something in the chart. Cool. Next question here. Can you share the notebook after the webinar? Yes. Yeah. The follow-up email will contain a link to a template. So it'll have this so you can duplicate it into your workspace, swap in your Google Sheets, and it should work. Your Google slide. Your Google Sheet ID. So it'll work pretty seamlessly, actually. It's pretty, I've done it now a couple of times. It's pretty good. Does Hex have a presentation solution like IPython presentation slides so you don't have to use Google Sheets? We, not to, I don't want to spoil surprises, but we do have some improvements coming out for the way you can lay out and sequence the app interface. So look out for our release notes next week on that. Is there a way to do this in Notion? So Hex, you can embed Hex directly in Notion. So you don't even have to do kind of the bonus steps of pushing it other places. You can just create an app and embed it. So if you need more details on that, again, please directly ping me and we can send you the link in our docs. But yeah, that's super easy to do. Do you plan to integrate with RollStack to take visualizations directly to slides without using sheets? Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with RollStack. I don't know if you've heard of that, Derek.
I don't think I have either.
Okay, yeah, again, I would say we are doing more work to improve our integration with Google Sheets and Google Slides. So more to come on that, but that's a little ways out roadmap wise. Okay, a little bit long question here. We have complex forecasting processes that have end results already in Google Sheets, which are part of monthly executive reporting. Does it make sense to use the flow outlined in the demo? Would there be a value add in getting that data from Sheets into our database and then following the steps outlined? Or is there another recommendation for this situation? I mean, if you're already in Google Sheets, your end results, you can do that same sort of linking of the sheets into the slides and do that update all to kind of make that part easier. Where Hex is adding value here is in querying that data from the database and allowing you to refresh that sheet. So is it difficult for you to refresh that sheet or not? You know, that's kind of the determining factor here of if you should move the workload through kind of the process that we talked about here. And if you want to move the modeling behind the scenes of the data before it's forecasted into something like dbt, that again would kind of push you towards the flow that we outlined here. Would you say the same, Derek?
Yeah, I would say the same. And I think another thing for folks to know is like, I guess when to use which tool again. It's like dbt is really meant to create data models that are near like ready to be production ready, right? You want these to be like your single source of truth. And then you would really use Hex as as a starting point, as a launch point. So at that point, people are still exploring from raw tables. It's still meant to be converted into converted to a DBT model. And then once you have your DBT models ready and pushed to prod, then yeah, just read from them in Hex. And it was really a cherry on top. The thing we're demoing today is like, oh, that's great. It can also help us, automate. That's wonderful.
Yep.
Last question here.
And I'll just quickly
yeah.
hop in there. Yeah, just to say, hey, everyone, my name is Bobby. I'm a partner manager at DBT Labs. And yeah, just wanted to quickly, point out there that in this process that we've been talking about, DBT really comes into play from a governance standpoint, right? So if we're talking about revenue or forecasting, of course, that modeling can be done outside of DBT in another platform, but DBT is really, really helpful in making sure that you've got testing, documentation, version control behind all of that work that you're doing, and in particular, if we're talking about revenue specifically, you've got an audit trail for any changes that have happened in the past if you want to go back and look at those, which is super helpful. But yes, and on all the other DBT questions, Derek has spoken incredibly well to the experience of why it's a great tool.
Nice. Yeah, last couple questions here. So can I embed Hex into another application? Yeah, you can definitely, kind of iframe apps wherever you'd like. The Notion integration is pretty good in particular. But yeah, totally. Oh, and then Harrison being helpful here. Yes, there are Hex notifications on run failures, so you can get alerted about that. That wraps up the questions I saw from the attendees. The last question I sort of had just for Derek was, after setting up this automation, if you end up kind of having any other ideas for what else you might try to automate with Hex or with the tools you talked about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool new features that are being created in Hex. And like I said, we are really, well, this is not available yet, but I would love this to be available. I would love a tighter integration between Hex and DBT where we can draft code in Hex and then push that code. I don't know how possible this is, but yeah, pushing that code to DBT so that we can do that testing, development, whatever in one environment, because that's kind of how our company treats Hex. It's a development exploration tool, data exploration tool, and then when we're ready, kind of like push that cell as a file, a .SQL file to DBT. And another cool thing maybe I've shared with the DBT community is just how to automate your or accelerate your documentation process. So Bobby, this might be cool for another time for you guys, but I've used GPT to code gen package and GPT to create like a first draft of your schema YAML file with all the table descriptions, column descriptions. And so our development process has been accelerated a lot through using these various tools. But my suggestion there is tighter integration between DBT and Hex would be awesome.
Well, that might be a good next talk for us to do at some point. Automating your documentation sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. Really appreciate your time, Derek, going through the demo, and thank you everyone for joining. Again, we will be sending out a follow-up email where we'll have a link to this template so you can try building it yourself. And if you had any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. The registration email should have been coming from me, mdavid@hex.tech, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you got. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.